For centuries, Christianity was seen as a European religion. Its great cathedrals, its influential thinkers, and its powerful empires were all rooted in the West. But, a massive change was coming. Starting around the year 1500, a great migration of faith began. This was not a movement of people, but a movement of ideas, beliefs, and rituals. Christianity started a journey that would take it to every corner of the globe. It traveled on ships with explorers, traders, and conquerors. It was carried in the hearts of missionaries who dedicated their lives to spreading their message. This journey would forever change both the faith itself and the societies it touched. It was a complex story, filled with devotion and ambition, conflict and connection. This global expansion was not a simple transfer of belief from one culture to another. It was a dynamic and often turbulent process. The story of Christianity's spread is not just a story of European missionaries. It is also the story of how countless communities in Africa, Asia, and the Americas heard this new message and made it their own. They did not just passively receive it, they actively shaped it. They blended it with their own traditions, answered its questions with their own wisdom, and expressed its truths in their own languages, music, and art. The result was not one single Christianity, but 1,000 different versions, each reflecting the unique spirit of its people. This process created a truly global faith. The period between the 1500s and the 1900s was a critical time for this transformation. It began with the age of European exploration, when new sea routes opened up the world. Catholic powers like Spain and Portugal saw it as their divine duty to bring Christianity to the lands they colonized. Later, Protestant nations like Britain and the Netherlands joined this missionary effort, driven by their own theological convictions and imperial ambitions. These centuries were marked by a massive, sustained effort to export a European religion to the rest of the world. But the story did not end as the missionaries might have expected. The seeds they planted grew into something new and unexpected. Ultimately, this long journey would reshape the entire Christian world. By the end of the 20th century, the demographic center of Christianity had moved. It was no longer in Europe or North America. Instead, the majority of the world's Christians now lived in the global south, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. This represents one of the most significant religious transformations in modern history. The faith that left Europe as a single stream returned as a mighty river with many tributaries. This essay explores that incredible journey, examining the messengers, the encounters, the conflicts, and the creative adaptations that turned a Western religion into a truly global faith, vibrant and diverse in its modern expression. The first great wave of Christian expansion after 1500 was driven by the Catholic Church. Following the voyages of Columbus and Vasco da Gama, Spain and Portugal built vast overseas empires. Hand in hand with soldiers and administrators came the missionaries. Religious orders like the Franciscans and Dominicans were at the forefront of this effort, especially in the Americas. They established missions from California to Argentina, seeking to convert millions of indigenous people. They learned local languages, wrote dictionaries, and built churches on the ruins of old temples. Their goal was to create a new Christian society, a mirror of Catholic Europe in the New World. Their methods were often tied to colonial power, but their dedication was undeniable. Among the most remarkable Catholic missionaries were the Jesuits. The Society of Jesus, founded in 1540, was known for its intellectual rigor and its strategy of cultural adaptation. In Asia, Jesuits like Francis Xavier in Japan and Matteo Ricci in China took a different approach. Instead of simply imposing European ways, they tried to understand the local culture. Ricci, for example, dressed as a Confucian scholar, learned classical Chinese, and presented Christianity in a way that resonated with Chinese philosophical traditions. This method of enculturation, or finding common ground between the gospel and local culture, was groundbreaking. It showed a deep respect for the civilizations they encountered, even if it sometimes brought them into conflict with authorities back in Rome. The Protestant missionary movement began later, gaining momentum in the 18th and 19th centuries. Fueled by a series of religious revivals in Europe and America, known as the Great Awakenings, Protestant churches began to see global mission as a sacred duty. Organizations like the London Missionary Society and the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions sent thousands of men and women overseas. Their destinations were different. They focused heavily on Africa, Asia, and the islands of the Pacific. Unlike the Catholic orders, these missions were often run by lay people, including doctors, teachers, and tradesmen, who combined evangelism with social work, like building schools and hospitals. These Protestant missionaries were pioneers in many fields. They were often the first Westerners to live in remote inland areas of Africa, or to document the languages of Pacific Islanders. Figures like David Livingstone in Africa became heroes back home, embodying a spirit of adventure, scientific inquiry, and Christian piety. They translated the Bible into hundreds of new languages, believing that every person should be able to read God's word in their own tongue. This act of translation had a profound impact. It not only spread Christian ideas, but also helped to standardize local languages and foster a new sense of cultural identity among the people they served, an unintended but powerful consequence of their work. The arrival of Christian missionaries in new lands was never a simple event. It was a complex encounter between different worlds, and it produced a wide range of outcomes. In many places, the encounter led to conflict. Indigenous peoples often saw missionaries as the spiritual arm of colonial invaders who were taking their land, destroying their political systems, and disrupting their way of life. The Christian message, which demanded exclusive loyalty to one God, seemed to threaten the very foundations of their societies. Spiritual leaders, chiefs and elders often resisted this new religion, seeing it as a foreign intrusion that would erase their ancestral traditions and weaken their communities. Sometimes this resistance was overt and violent. There are many stories of missionaries being killed or driven out by local populations who rejected their message. In other cases, the conflict was more subtle. Colonial governments often favored Christian converts, giving them access to education, jobs, and political influence. This created deep divisions within societies, pitting neighbor against neighbor and family member against family member. The new faith could become a source of social tension, a tool of colonial control, and a symbol of cultural loss. For many, converting to Christianity meant turning one's back on the ancestors, the spirits, and the rituals that had given life meaning for generations. However, the story is not only one of conflict. There were also many instances of cooperation and genuine curiosity. Some local leaders saw missionaries as potential allies. They might have hoped that the missionaries' connections to powerful empires could protect them from rival groups, or that their knowledge of medicine and technology could benefit their people. Others were genuinely drawn to the Christian message itself. They found in it powerful new ideas about love, forgiveness, and a personal relationship with a benevolent Creator God. For people living in societies with rigid social hierarchies or oppressive spiritual systems, the Christian idea of equality before God could be deeply liberating. This led to a process of creative adaptation. Indigenous peoples were not passive victims of a foreign religion. They were active agents who interpreted, selected, and reshaped Christian beliefs to fit their own cultural contexts. They might accept the idea of a single, all-powerful God, but continue to honor their ancestors. They might incorporate Christian saints into their existing pantheon of spirits, or use Christian rituals to address very local concerns, like ensuring a good harvest or healing a specific illness. This process of blending, known as syncretism, was not a corruption of the faith, but a creative act of making it meaningful and relevant in a new world. It was the first step toward creating a truly local Christianity. As Christianity took root in new soil, it began to grow in unexpected directions. The forms of faith that emerged were often very different from what the European missionaries had intended. One of the most powerful examples of this is the rise of African-initiated churches, or AICs. Beginning in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, many African Christians broke away from mission-led churches. They felt that the European missionaries did not understand their spiritual world, which was filled with spirits, ancestors, and the ever-present threat of witchcraft. These new churches were founded by charismatic African prophets who offered a version of Christianity that spoke directly to African realities. These AICs, such as the Zion Christian Church in Southern Africa or the Aladora churches in West Africa, placed a strong emphasis on divine healing, prophecy, and spiritual protection. Their worship services were vibrant and emotional, filled with drumming, dancing, and spontaneous prayer, elements that were often discouraged in the more reserved mission churches. They created a space where African cultural expressions were not seen as pagan, but were celebrated as valid ways to worship the Christian God. These churches grew rapidly because they offered a powerful and relevant faith that addressed the everyday hopes and fears of African people, creating a Christianity that was authentically African. In Latin America, a different kind of indigenous Christian movement emerged in the mid-20th century, known as liberation theology. For centuries, the Catholic Church in the region had been closely allied with the wealthy elite and powerful governments. But a new generation of priests, nuns, and laypeople began to read the Bible through the eyes of the poor and oppressed. They saw that the story of the Exodus, the words of the prophets, and the life of Jesus were filled with a powerful message of justice and liberation. They argued that the Church's primary mission should be to fight for the rights of the poor and to challenge the unjust social and political structures that caused their suffering. Alongside liberation theology, another powerful force swept through Latin America, Pentecostalism. This form of Christianity, with its emphasis on personal experience, spiritual gifts like speaking in tongues, and direct divine intervention, resonated deeply with millions. It offered a powerful sense of community and personal empowerment to people who often felt marginalized by society. Pentecostal churches, often started by local leaders with little formal training, grew explosively in the slums and rural areas. They provided not just spiritual comfort, but also a strong social network that helped people cope with the challenges of poverty and rapid social change, creating a new, vibrant face of Latin American faith. It is impossible to tell the story of Christianity's global spread without talking about colonialism. The two were, deeply intertwined. For several centuries, the cross often followed the flag. Missionaries frequently arrived in the wake of conquerors, traders, and colonial administrators. In the minds of many indigenous peoples, the Christian religion was inseparable from the European empires that were imposing their rule. This association created a fundamental tension that has shaped global Christianity ever since. The faith that preached love and universal brotherhood was often delivered by people connected to oppressive and exploitative political systems. This connection to empire created, many moral compromises. Missionaries sometimes relied on colonial power to protect them or to pressure local people into converting. They often saw European civilization as superior and believed that becoming Christian also meant becoming civilized, adopting European dress, customs, and ways of thinking. This cultural arrogance led to the destruction of much traditional art, music, and social structures, which were dismissed as pagan or savage. The mission school, while providing education, also taught local children to devalue their own heritage. This legacy of cultural imperialism left deep scars and complicated the relationship between Christianity and local identity for generations. Yet, the story is more complex than one of simple domination. The Christian message itself contained the seeds of resistance to empire. The Bible's teachings about the dignity of every human being, the call for justice for the poor, and the idea of a higher authority than the state gave colonized peoples a powerful new language to critique their rulers. Many of the leaders of anti-colonial movements in Africa and Asia were educated in mission schools. They used the ideals of Christian morality and Western democracy, which they had learned from missionaries, to demand freedom and self-determination for their own people. In this way, Christianity became a double-edged sword. It was both a tool of empire and a resource for liberation. Out of this complex mix of power, faith, and culture, a process of enculturation began to take place. This was a more conscious and respectful effort than simple syncretism. Thoughtful local Christians and some missionaries began to ask how the essential message of the gospel could be expressed in truly indigenous forms. How could one be fully African and fully Christian, or fully Chinese and fully Christian? This led to the development of new theologies, liturgies, and art forms. For example, African theologians began to talk about Jesus as the great ancestor, and Asian artists depicted biblical scenes with local people and landscapes. This was the process of the faith truly taking root, moving beyond its colonial baggage to become a local reality. The true story of global Christianity is found not in grand theories, but in the lives of individuals and communities. In Latin America, for decades, many people experienced their faith as a set of formal rituals with little personal connection. But the rise of Pentecostal and charismatic revivals changed everything. Suddenly, faith became a deeply personal and emotional experience. Testimonies from these movements often tell a similar story. A life of despair, perhaps marked by alcoholism or family breakdown, is transformed by a powerful encounter with God. People speak of being filled with the Holy Spirit, of miraculous healings, and of finding a new sense of purpose and belonging in the vibrant community of their local church. These revivals were not quiet, orderly affairs. They were loud, joyful, and deeply participatory. A typical service in a Brazilian Pentecostal church might involve hours of passionate singing, spontaneous prayer, and emotional testimonies. The pastor is not a distant, robed figure, but a charismatic leader who speaks directly to the struggles of the congregation. For millions of people living in the sprawling, often chaotic cities of Latin America, these churches became a vital source of hope and stability. They were places where people felt seen, heard, and empowered. This was not a faith inherited from colonial Spain or Portugal. It was a new, dynamic Christianity forged in the realities of modern urban life. In China, the story of Christianity took a different path, one marked by persecution and resilience. After the Communist Revolution in 1949, foreign missionaries were expelled, and religious practice was severely restricted. For a time, it seemed that Christianity might be extinguished, but instead, it went underground. It survived and grew in what came to be known as house churches, small, informal gatherings of believers meeting secretly in apartments and private homes. These communities operated without official approval, without church buildings, and without formally trained clergy. Their survival depended entirely on the courage and commitment of ordinary believers. The stories from the Chinese house church movement are a powerful testament to the resilience of faith. Leaders were often arrested, Bibles were scarce, and meeting was always risky. Yet the movement experienced explosive growth. Believers shared handwritten copies of scriptures and passed on hymns and sermons by word of mouth. The faith that grew in this environment was intense and deeply personal. It was stripped of all the institutional trappings of Western Christianity. It was a faith focused on prayer, community, and a radical dependence on God. Today, despite ongoing restrictions, the number of Christians in China has grown from around 1 million in 1949 to an estimated 100 million or more. A truly astonishing story of spiritual vitality. As Christianity has become a truly global religion, its forms of expression have become incredibly diverse. The faith is no longer confined to the solemn hymns and Gothic architecture of Europe. Instead, it has absorbed the colors, sounds, and rhythms of countless cultures, creating a vibrant kaleidoscope of worship. Walk into a church in Kinshasa, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and you might find a Catholic Mass that looks very different from one in Rome. The service, known as the Zairian Rite, incorporates traditional African music, drumming, and dancing. The community honors its ancestors, and the priest might wear vestments adorned with local patterns. It is an expression of faith that is both fully Catholic and fully African. This artistic and cultural flowering can be seen everywhere. In Asia, Christian artists are reimagining biblical stories through the lens of their own traditions. You can find paintings of the Madonna and Child where Mary is depicted with Korean features, wearing a traditional hanbok. In India, some Christians use the classical dance form of Bharatanatyam to tell the story of Christ's life. Christian music has also been transformed. In the Caribbean, congregations sing hymns to the rhythm of reggae and calypso. In Latin America, worship songs blend folk melodies with modern pop music. This is not just decoration. It is theology expressed in art, a declaration that the Christian story belongs to all people. The diversity of global Christianity is also evident in its social and political activism. In many parts of the global south, the church is a primary provider of social services that the state cannot or will not offer. Christian organizations run hospitals, schools, orphanages, and development projects. They are on the front lines of the fight against HIV and AIDS in Africa, and they advocate for the rights of marginalized communities like the Dalits, sometimes called untouchables, in India. This activism is often inspired by a theology that sees faith as inseparable from action. For these Christians, following Jesus means caring for the sick, feeding the hungry, and challenging injustice, just as he did. This new energy has also begun to flow back to the West. Immigrant congregations from Africa, Asia, and Latin America are revitalizing Christianity in Europe and North America, where traditional churches have often been in decline. In cities like London or Paris, some of the largest and most dynamic churches are now Nigerian, Ghanaian, or Brazilian. They bring with them their vibrant worship styles, their strong emphasis on community, and their confident faith. They are, in a sense, re-evangelizing the old heartlands of Christianity. This reverse mission demonstrates that the flow of influence in the Christian world is no longer a one-way street from north to south, but a complex, multi-directional exchange. The single most important fact about Christianity in the 21st century is this: its center of gravity has shifted dramatically to the south and the east. In the year 1900, more than 80% of the world's Christians lived in Europe and North America. Today, over 65% live in the global south, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And you know, this trend is accelerating. While the number of Christians in the West is stagnant or declining, it is growing explosively in other parts of the world. Africa, which had only about 10 million Christians in 1900, is projected to have over 1 billion by the middle of this century. Christianity is no longer a white man's religion. Its typical member today is a woman living in a village in Nigeria or a slum in Brazil. This demographic revolution is changing everything about what it means to be Christian. The questions that dominate theological debates in the global South are often very different from those in the West. While Western Christians might be concerned with issues of secularism or the relationship between faith and science, Christians in Africa or Asia are more likely to be focused on poverty, political corruption, ethnic conflict, or persecution from other religious groups. Theirs is a faith lived in a world of immediate spiritual and physical dangers. Belief in miracles, divine healing, and the reality of demonic forces is not a metaphor. It is a part of everyday experience. This shift also means that the future of Christianity will be shaped by voices from the global South. Theologians from Africa, Asia, and Latin America are developing new ways of understanding the faith that are rooted in their own contexts. They are challenging the assumptions of Western theology and offering fresh perspectives on the Bible. The leaders of the world's largest and fastest-growing denominations are increasingly from the South. When global Christian bodies meet to discuss the future of the faith, the most influential voices are no longer just those from Rome, Canterbury, or Geneva, but also from Lagos, São Paulo, and Seoul. This new reality presents both opportunities and challenges. The energy, passion, and resilience of Southern Christianity are a source of immense vitality for the global church. However, this shift can also lead to tensions. The theological and social views of many Christians in the global South, particularly on issues of morality and sexuality, are often much more conservative than those of mainstream churches in the West. This has already led to serious divisions within global denominations like the Anglican Communion. Understanding and navigating this new multipolar Christian world with its diverse priorities and perspectives is one of the great challenges for the faith in the 21st century. The journey of Christianity from the 1500s to the present day is a story of profound transformation. A religion that was once largely confined to Europe has become the largest and most geographically diverse faith in human history. This expansion was a complex and often contradictory process. It was driven by sincere devotion and missionary zeal, but it was also deeply entangled with the violence and injustice of colonialism. Missionaries brought education and medicine, but they also brought cultural arrogance and helped to support oppressive empires. It is a history that cannot be easily celebrated or condemned. It must be understood in all its painful and inspiring complexity. The most important legacy of this history is the incredible diversity of modern Christianity. The faith has shown a remarkable ability to adapt and take root in a vast array of cultures. It has been remade and reinterpreted by millions of people who have made it their own. The result is not a monolithic global religion, but a family of faiths, a world Christianity with many different faces. An Ethiopian Orthodox Christian chanting in Ge'ez, a Korean Presbyterian praying in a megachurch, and a Peruvian Catholic participating in a festival for a local saint, are all part of this same global story. The faith's ability to speak to different peoples in their own cultural language is the secret to its enduring global success. Today, the energy and growth in the Christian world lie firmly in the global South. The churches of Africa, Asia, and Latin America are not just passive recipients of a foreign faith. They are now the creative centers, producing new theologies, new forms of worship, and new models of mission. This represents a reversal of the historical trend. For centuries, Europe and North America were the exporters of Christianity. Now, they are increasingly a mission field for believers from the former colonies. This southern shift ensures that Christianity will remain a vibrant and dynamic force in the 21st century, even as it declines in its traditional heartlands. In conclusion, the story of Christianity's global journey is a testament to its remarkable resilience and adaptability. It is a faith that has been constantly remade as it has moved across the world. This process has not been without its dark chapters, particularly its association with empire. Yet, the final result is a faith of extraordinary richness and variety. The journey from a European religion to a global one has created a new kind of Christendom, one that is more diverse, more vibrant, and more representative of humanity as a whole. The challenges remain, but the creative power unleashed by this global encounter continues to shape the world in powerful and unexpected ways.